Days and days of the same thing now. Eating green gummy crystals, drinking green wine, watching the father guy, my name for him, flail about like he does, and listening to his high-pitched whining. Usually I just sit and smile at him, but when my cheeks get sore, I imitate whatever he's doing. If he nods, I nod. If he shakes his head, I shake mine. I will not write in this diary unless something weird or exciting happens. How long have I been here? It is very hard to keep track of time when nothing new happens. Once again the father guy came out to bother me with his high-pitched whining, although it seemed more fevered this time. He kept pointing off away from where we sat. Then he stood up and stomped about, always pointing. It looked like a dance to me. As far as I knew, it was a dance, since I had never seen any of these little beings dance, so I stood up and danced. I tried to make the steps of my dance like the father guy's, but he was not at all pleased with my imitation. I was busy trying to perfect my dancing step when I was suddenly hit from all sides by food. I assumed that it was my part in this strange dance to try and catch as much of the food as I could in my mouth. I was doing pretty well, if I do say so myself. I suppose I have an advantage over these little beings, since my mouth was so much bigger than any of theirs. Perhaps this is why I was chosen for this special part of the dance. More of the big heads joined the crowd that was throwing the food at me, so I finally could not keep up with the torrent of food. I do not mean to criticize, but many of the beings did not have very good aim. I was ducking and jumping, doing my best to get my face into place to catch the food, but a lot of it just splattered against my body. A lot more just landed on the ground, so that I stepped in a bunch of it as I moved around. And still more of the big heads came out to where we all were, and they joined in the food throwing. I felt a little ridiculous, since I could not possibly keep up the pace of the dance, and the little guys really showed no sign of letting up. By now a big circle of the beings surrounded me, all of them whining and shrieking same chant, I suppose. I decided to step out of the circle and figured I would get another chance to get this dance right sometime later. But after I stepped out of the circle, they continued to throw food at me. I did not even try to catch it. I really wanted to practice this dance and try to do better the next time. As I stepped further away to get out of their throwing range, they finally stopped. They stopped their whining and shrieking chant too, and soon the big heads were cheering and clapping. I turned back to accept their applause. I think they appreciated that I tried so hard to catch all of the food, because as soon as I turned back, they started throwing more. I did not want to dance this food-catching dance anymore. I turned my back to the big heads, with big round heads, and walked away as fast as I could. Before I knew it, I was walking up to another group of tiny beings. These beings remained silent as I approached, no whining or shrieking or moaning. These beings are just as tiny as the first beings I lived amongst, but they have different heads. Their heads seem to be the right size for their little bodies. Their faces are featureless except for a long, needle-like proboscis. These tiny beings seem to use this protuberance for all their communications and all their senses: sight, smell, taste, hearing, feeling. Some of these beings pointed their needle noses here and there over my body as I approached, but most keep them pointed at my feet.